less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Free Georgia podcast, number 42. My name is Jake Green. Thank y'all for tuning in today. First off, if you like this podcast, if you find it informative, entertaining, whatever, go subscribe, leave us a review, comment, share it with your friends, all the above, because that helps us put us out there in the algorithm a little bit more than we already are. This podcast is growing, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the audience response to it and how many views we're getting. So let's keep it up. Let's keep spreading liberty around the interwebs. If you have any questions about the Libertarian Party, you can head on over to lpgeorgia.com to learn a whole bunch about what we believe and what we're doing, where our affiliates are. If you're not in Georgia, you can go to lp.org to learn more about our national party, and then you can find your state's party from there. Coming up, we do have an event, the Savannah Pub Crawl to Banish Big Brother. It's all about anti-surveillance measures, and it's down in Savannah on September 30th, Saturday, from 7 to 11 p.m. I think I'm going to be there, along with a whole bunch of other like-minded libertarians. Today's guest just popped into the studio while I'm doing this intro. You know him, you love him. He's the governor that never was, the governor that should have been, Mr. Shane Hazel. Welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, it's good to see your face back here in Georgia, man.
Heck yeah. It's my first show back in Georgia. I was not expecting you to pop in just then. I was going to pause it and keep going, but hey, we're in it now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just coming backstage. I thought you may be doing a warm up, getting your voice going, doing your voice exercises and articulation exercises like Ron Burgundy, I
mean, there's a lot of that for sure. I definitely sound like an idiot to the rest of the household. So
hey, man.
What's going on? Is that Kenobi in the background, or is that the new pup?
Yeah, I got Kenobi down on the floor there. She's just hanging out. I had to kick out Hopper. He's the new adolescent in the house right now. And, he's a boy. She's a aging female, and she really doesn't want anything to do with him. So it's like, you got to take a hike, kid.
Yeah, that makes sense. They do get annoyed. Like, older dogs will definitely get annoyed with the younger ones. We've actually got one hanging out in the house right now because he gets really frustrated with all the energy in the other room. So, yeah.
I understand, definitely. I'm glad you guys are healed up too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I don't even think, well, it did leave a scar, but whatever. Chicks take scars, right? That's how it goes.
That's right. only one that you need to worry about, though. It's all good.
Well, dude, first off, what have you been doing since the governor's race? I think that may have been the last time you were on this podcast.
Yeah, man. I kind of semi-retired, so that was nice. Yeah, I spent about the first half of I guess 2023 kind of just doing some, I don't know, some internal and external type of understanding, like kind of taking stock of what is and where I want to go. And I think I'm still trying to figure some of it out. I've got some ideas of kind of like where I can do things and what I want to do. I've seen kind of a bigger picture mission in terms of, how, we're going to fight. Obviously, I'm sure it goes as no surprise. Like my first and foremost passion in this world is creating freedom, selfishly for myself and for others. But, I've kind of fallen into this group of like-minded people with, obviously the libertarians, but also people that are into Bitcoin and things like psilocybin, and, natural health, homesteading, homeschooling, and this crowd that, that I've been able to, I don't know, kind of jump in with is just, I don't know. It's one of those crowds that has really gathered energy. They're gaining some understanding about how to go about. I think this feeling that we all have that something's wrong, and trying to figure out how to best fight it without getting into a hot conflict. So I've been doing a lot of that. I guess in July, I got picked up. I'm working with Swan. Swan is a Bitcoin only company here in the United States. So obviously they asked me to come and work with those guys, and I was excited to do so. So been doing that at the same time, standing up the 501c3 for Brave. And the Brave is, a psychedelic post-traumatic stress mission that, we started putting on out here. It's a 10,000-year-old curation in the making. And I mean, we're coming into the season, man, which I'm extremely excited for. So I've been busy. It's but I've kind of been out of the eye a little bit. I mean, I haven't had time to even do my podcast much in the past couple months. So it's a pleasure being here with you, though.
Heck yeah. It's great to have you on, man. I haven't seen you in a while. Looking forward to coming up and hanging out with you.
Yeah, man.
Before we get into the psychedelic thing, which I know is why Elizabeth wanted you to come on the show today, let's talk about Swan Bitcoin a little bit and like what you're doing over there. And because you were known as the Bitcoin governor in the race. So like what have you been doing with them, and what have you been doing with Bitcoin over the last few months?
Yeah. So obviously, if you don't know about Bitcoin, figure it out. If you need help figuring it out, I can help you with that. So I am one of the account executives for the private side. It's for high net worth individuals that are looking to keep their wealth instead of having it inflated away right now. We do a few different things over there. High net worth individuals at Swan are considered, 100,000 and up, which is, for, I don't know, 30, 40 plus year olds. If you've got $100,000 that's sitting in a 401k somewhere, or in a Roth or a traditional, or anything, that's a savings device out there, you can actually convert those things over. So being a private member isn't really all that hard these days. But there's some really interesting stuff that we've been working on. We've just announced that we're going to be the first Bitcoin only trust company in the United States. We're working with BitGo, who is an outstanding partner in the space. They custody Bitcoin with you in terms of multi-sig. So if you're not familiar with the term multi-sig, it means that you and BitGo have to come together with your keys in a video call to extract, Bitcoin. So which means they can't do anything with it on their own, and you don't take a tax penalty because you wanted to actually put it into hard money. So I've been, doing account executive stuff. So basically I advise people on how to move their wealth into Bitcoin, how to cold storage, all of that. And then just kind of creating the signal so that people can really understand what is the best path in terms of not only saving their wealth, but kind of, short circuiting this empire collapse that we're experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's getting hit pretty hard with inflation right now, and they'll tell you it's a certain percentage, but it's even worse than they tell you. And yeah, I mean, I guess, a little bit more on Bitcoin, just for folks who don't know that much about it. The biggest hurdle, it seems, for people to actually jump into Bitcoin is the fact that it's labeled as volatile. Can you speak to that for a second?
Yeah. So volatility is one of those things that they want to talk about in terms of, what you see in terms of price swings. How is the market reacting to Bitcoin? And when you look at, where we've come since 2009, I think we're at about 15% adoption, and I'll kind of wrap this into a bow here for everybody. But what's unstable is the dollar. The dollar and how it is not only used here in the States, but how it is received around the world. You've got a lot of volatility in the dollar itself because of its collapse. And when you look at how the rest of the world functions on a world reserve currency that's pegged to the dollar, what you're going to see is more volatility. That's why you see places like Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, in any of these places that have pegged their money to the dollar, have actually seen 90, sometimes 90s, 60, 70, 90% declines in their own purchasing power with their currency. That's on top of the debasement of the US dollar, which is, about over, right? Like we're at like 99.9%. So all we got is that 0.01% left to go.
Yeah.
So the volatility in terms of, Bitcoin is really non-existent. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. And what you can trade it for dirty fiat for is really, something that it shouldn't shock people. And as there is more capital investment with, the ETFs coming online, which maybe some people know about, maybe some people don't know about. There are places like BlackRock, Fidelity, the rest of these institutionalized investment companies that are out there that are applying through the SEC for a spot ETF, which means there's institutional size money coming. We're talking tens of trillions of dollars possibly within the coming years, where when you start to look at market cap for Bitcoin, we're somewhere around 600 billion right now. Gold, to give you a reference, is right around 11 to 12 trillion dollars. If we get to the point where we're at gold's level with Bitcoin in terms of market cap, 10 trillion, 11 trillion dollars, what you're going to see is that quote unquote volatility, that's the ups and downs, the spikes and valleys. That's going to smooth out a lot just because it takes more money to move that price. So it's early. You've got an opportunity to buy Bitcoin before it takes off. There's a halving next year in 2024 in April. So when you start to see, where we're at, we're literally sitting on the proverbial launch pad. And this halving that's coming up is kind of different for Bitcoin as well. This is the time in Bitcoin's, I don't know, progression where the rewards for Bitcoin mining, instead of being, I think it's 6.25 now, are going to be cut in half down to just a little over 3 Bitcoin per 10-minute block for the solving the equations, right? So when we see what's happening, we're actually getting into a place where Bitcoin is going to have less inflation per year than gold. And that's something that's even newer to Bitcoin, right? Is like at first we released tons and tons of Bitcoin. It just halves every 4 years, and now we're getting to that point where the halving is actually creating even more scarcity, and that's going to drive that price of Bitcoin through the roof here soon.
Yeah, because what is it? The inflation rate of gold is like 1%, like 2% maybe over time.
Depending on what the demand for gold is, you're looking at about 2%, 2.5%, up to 5%, depending on what's going on with markets, right? And what's really interesting is when the SEC and the rest of these clowns up there in Washington gave gold a spot ETF. Gold rose by over 800%. In the coming years. So when you look at like where we're at, if we get a spot ETF with Bitcoin here, which there's over 10 companies that have applied for the spot ETF, and they've won some major court battles pretty recently that says that they're going to have to hear these things out, and there's no real case for denying them. Not to mention BlackRock has won 552 of their cases for going into the SEC, and they've only lost one. You've literally got they've got a 550 percent chance almost of going in there. I should say 550 to 1 shot of actually getting this approved.
It's a pretty good shot, I would say.
So maybe have a little, where they say if this thing catches on, maybe have a little Bitcoin.
All right. Well, I just went onto your website, and let's talk about Brave, but let's talk about this line at the top that says funded by Bitcoin. So can you give us just a brief description of what Brave is, and then tell us how it's funded by Bitcoin?
So yeah, Brave is a 501c3 that I had to stand up because, the government wants their cut for everything. But Brave is a post-traumatic stress mission. It's not just for veterans, it's for civilians as well. And as we're moving through this, we use we use plant medicine. We'll just leave it at that. We use plant medicine that is, extremely natural and, under very close care of supervision of people who have been in the space for a long time. And we take guys out. We haven't taken any females out, so no offense, but it's one of those things where we just try to keep this thing on the up and up, right? Like the world's kind of crazy in terms of who can get blamed for what and doing. Like you just kind of stay away from all that kind of stuff altogether. So, in terms of going out, this is a curated type of experience. It's 10,000 years in the making. Obviously, there's some fairly historical things going on here in North Georgia that I think a lot of people have either they don't know about or have forgotten about. And we take people through this experience and help them find some mental clarity, some engagement, some envelopment, and something that kind of goes hand in hand with Bitcoin, honestly. That is a weapon for peace and undermining the this archaic analog type of system that we have that forbids things that grow out of the ground naturally. It's amazing. But in terms of funded by Bitcoin, yeah. So what we're standing up here is a Bitcoin funded organization, so that people really understand like these two things are very much hand in hand. They're based in freedom. They're meant to take the power away from the state and empower people again to their natural God-given rights. In the earth, the things that grow out of it, each other, and the basic communications protocol that is. If you and I want to do any type of trade, that should really be the only parties that are allowed in our business. And so when, we stand this up, we don't want anything standing in between what we're trying to do. And that's obviously bring people together and encourage them to the cause of freedom.
I love it. There are, there are a bunch of different ways that people can help with their PTSD. Like for instance, making a documentary right now, following veterans as they make like an album. There are a bunch of creative musical folks, people who can write, people who can play guitar, people who can sing. And that seems to be a very effective form of dealing with post-traumatic stress. What made you choose plant medicine and going down this route?
The epiphanies, people call you crazy for whatever you say these days. So, the vision, I personally went out by myself in the, dark of the night before sunrise and had an experience that was life-changing, like literally life-altering. And I've done this numerous times since. So when I saw this specific, vision, I guess, it was very clear to me, what we needed to do. When you have these interpersonal type of, basically going down the rabbit hole of your own, being, this consciousness, like what is looking out of your eyes? And a lot of people have never stopped to really ask that question. They've never, there are a lot of different ideas out there. Some, scientists call it, science, and people in religion talk about deities, people who are, doing, other things out there in terms of energetics, like physicists, they'll call it quantum mechanics. And really the basis of it is all, the understanding of consciousness and energy. And so when I went down these routes with plant medicine, it all kind of became abundantly clear, or at least gave me an understanding of what I'm supposed to be doing. And that is helping people have these experiences so that they can, have a vision, maybe download some information, find some purpose, re-energize their lives a little bit. Because I think in this day and age, I actually heard Nick Freitas on Sean Ryan's just this morning, this recent quote that he had. He's like, I feel like a hostage in my own country. And if you guys don't know who Nick Freitas is, he's an amazing guy. He was a Virginia statesman and all about freedom. He was also a Green Beret. So when I hear people feel like that. I mean, I felt like that in this country for a long time, up until about 2019, 2020, when I, found plant medicine, and it empowered me, and to help other guys, especially extremely knowledgeable, powerful, guys that have this yearning for freedom. I saw this and I was just like, man, this is something that is absolutely something that we can replicate. This is something that we can, push off. It's organic. And once people really understand how these things work, these mysteries that have been made, illegal, we have a real chance to change culture. And politics a lot of times is downstream from culture, and what's downstream from or I should say what's upstream from all of it is the way we communicate. And that's how Bitcoin figures into this, is when we communicate through peace and consent, versus this this terrible analog version that we have now of force and coercion. You start to change culture. You start to build this a literal foundation. So it's not just onesie twosies. You're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, if not maybe millions of people now, that are starting to understand how all of these things are interrelated, and how to grow this understanding so that as a culture you find unity. You stop arguing about all these silly things that are out there, in terms of Republicans and Democrats, right? Like right now, the fact that we're talking, people are just up in arms about who's going to be the next president. Well, I think the bigger question is like, what's going to be the next money, right? Like what's going to be the next world reserve currency? Because at this time, we have a really, really broken system, and that's all funded through this fiat counterfeit class that has, been able to create money out of thin air that you have to work for, and that they can take from you, and that they can tax when you make it, tax when you spend it, tax when you do anything, in terms of a communication to somebody else. And, where I want to see, where I want to take something of value from you to give you value, like that system is absolutely broken. So to have people coalescing around both of these subjects, the plant medicine, the psilocybin, and Bitcoin at the same time, this culture is starting to really gain some amazing traction. And really all they want is to be left alone. And it's right in the libertarian wheelhouse.
Yes, it is. How has been people's response coming out and going through this whole process? Like, are people nervous when they get there? Are they excited? Like, what's the general response?
So I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like, there's this feeling. I don't know how other people have gotten through that feeling. Maybe when you were younger, right, and you were trying to work up the courage to ask some girl on a date, and you're trying to be relatable for everybody else, because not everybody's gone overseas and gone to war and been nervous and excited. Like being nervous and excited at the same time is, I think, a good thing. It piques your senses, for one. And when you dial in your senses and then add in a very natural, very still, very peaceful and safe environment that has history, that takes you back over 10,000 years, those experiences are something that you can't get anywhere else. These are, very specific. And, you want to talk about like lives change when people, fly home, after being here, after they, get back to their life. Something's changed. There's a switch in their mind that they know has been flipped, and or maybe a proverbial itch that's now saying, do something. What is it that you need to do? Maybe you found it out here, maybe you're still in search of it, but the process of that continues to help change people. And I think it's a catalyst. I think there's a great quote, you can do about 10,000 years worth of therapy in about 5 to 10 hours, right? And so if you want to shortcut the whole meditation and everything else, I'm not saying meditation on its own isn't a good thing. I'm saying when you add in some very divine natural components in a natural environment, you can cut out a ton of time, and you can get into this place that you're doing introspection. You can fight all the demons that you've been wrestling with your entire life, and at the same time find purpose, so that when you are back in the normie world, you've got some hope, you've got some weapons that are very much undeniable. And when you start to see how this compounds itself and how people migrate towards this and find each other, no matter what their backgrounds are, race, religion, sex, orientation, whatever, it doesn't, none of it matters. I've seen this. So, just for anybody who's out there, is like, obviously I get to hang out with Bitcoiners all the time. Well, when Bitcoiners are together, minus like developers and all that kind of stuff, what one of the one things they talk about all the time? Plant medicine, spirituality. And it is almost like, these people they've unlocked something. And as they've unlocked something, they've found some empathy, they've found some mission, and they've found each other, and they want to be together. Like, they want to build communities. They want to be self-reliant. They want to be anti-fragile, as we talk about in Bitcoin. So when you have forces like this of people who are a lot of times younger, a lot of times extremely smart, that are working with a technology that is like 0 to 1 technology. So like the printing press, the wheel, fire, that's going to change the human species forever. What you're looking at is something that I don't think they can stop. You've got this amazing peaceful weapon for the revolution that gives, I don't want to say hope, but it does. It sparks hope in people, and it sparks, community and all these things that I think we're longing for as a culture. This stableness, this idea that, hey, look, tomorrow's tomorrow, and today's, the present. We can look at what we have today, we can be grateful for it, and know that tomorrow is going to be better. Tomorrow, we can do, more things. And, as long as we've got breath in our lungs, there's a fight that's going to be had. And that fight now in modern times doesn't have to be that, bloody rebellion, that bloody revolution that we've seen over and over through the course of history.
Man, that is powerful. One thing that I think people completely overlook and don't even really associate with Bitcoin or plant medicine, psilocybin, whatever it is this idea of peace, like peace on earth, goodwill to men. Like that's generally what everybody wants, And
Yeah.
so why is Bitcoin, why is plant medicine, why are these the vehicle to possibly get us to that point?
Yeah. So Bitcoin, do Bitcoin first, and then we'll do psilocybin. So why is Bitcoin the vehicle? Bitcoin, I've talked about this, I think, in a number of talks with, especially the libertarian crowd, right? It was, the libertarian crowd, I love everybody, and that's the thing. Like, I say everybody, I love most libertarians. This crowd has been working tirelessly for 50 years, and they've got damn near nothing to show for it. I mean that in the most complimentary way on earth. But there's a reason why there's nothing to show for it. It's because we're playing in their sandbox. And I mean this, metaphorically, I guess, where if, let's just say you have two kids and they want to go play in the sandbox. Well, that kid's, the neighbor kid who has the sandbox, they also have cats around. And so the cat, likes to go and take a shit in their sandbox. And cats are known to have this thing called toxoplasmosis, which is a really nasty disease that can infect your brain. So that, if this kid wants to play in this guy's sandbox and they're having this peaceful transaction, their transaction is actually infested and has been corrupted and perverted by the toxoplasmosis. That's what the American economy is. Like, we're all playing in the sandbox, and we want to do it peacefully. 99.9% of us go about our days doing exactly this. We play nicely together. We don't rape each other. We don't murder each other. We don't do any harm to each other. We don't trespass. We're good people. This is 99.9% of the interactions on Earth every day. But every time we have that transaction is a transaction of the Federal Reserve in fiat currency from the counterfeit class. And when you start to understand that they take a cut, this is literally a parasitic type of relationship that we have, we had no say over until 2009. We had, we could try to go do business in gold, but let's face it, in a global economy, doing business in gold is unrealistic. It's slow. You can't do those kind of things. Paper, we know what happens with paper since 1971 when we debased, when we went off the gold standard, we just debased what the value of money was. We went from money to a currency, which is completely different. So now you've got this fiat currency that's made out of, thin air. It's been devalued by 99%, and it's still infecting culture. So, people have, if you look at it culturally, you start to see, I've got to spend this money sooner than later because this money sitting anywhere is going to lose value. And literally right now with the interest rates the way they are, the value of dollars is half every 10 years. So your purchasing power, what you've traded your life for, is worth half of what it was over 10 years. And that's speeding up. So this infection, this cancer that we have, that is the Federal Reserve, that is fiat currency, and this counterfeit class that it's produced, the bureaucracy, the wars, the manipulation that has been an outright assault on extracting wealth from the 99.9% of us that are good people, has finally come up against something that you can opt out of, opt into, and that's Bitcoin. Because now Bitcoin is a point-to-point transaction. You don't need rails. We don't, and I say rails, I know maybe some industry talk. You don't need like a SWIFT system over in Europe. You don't need an ability to exchange and trust a third party when you're transmitting value from one person to another in terms of signal. And that's what the economy is. Signal is, what I think something is worth and what you're willing to pay for it. And so when we talk about market signal, if I want to send something over to Africa, and let's just say I want to buy somebody a Starlink in Africa, right? Because now somebody in the Bitcoin universe has gone over there, put in a hydroelectric dam that's, now mining Bitcoin, and with the extra power can run Starlink and have an uplink and provide electricity to a village that's never had their own currency before, that creates a circular economy where people can trade peacefully without being devalued by the IMF or the US dollar. Then what you're doing is creating even more free people around the planet to trade, right? Like you're just freeing them of this infection that is fiat. And so in terms of Bitcoin, you get an opportunity now. And I say opportunity because we're still early enough to where you can trade fiat for Bitcoin instead of having to work for it. Because eventually people aren't going to be able to trade fiat for Bitcoin. At some point, that all goes away. And when that goes away, you're talking about, these people who got into Bitcoin early having a ton of power projection. And there's a great book out there. Well, actually, I think it got pulled, but it was written by what's his name? I think I'd have to pull it up. It's power projection. I'm murdering this right now. I'm going to apologize. I'll think of it here in a few minutes. But in terms of power projection, this is written by a major in Space Force who's a young guy that graduated from MIT, and I cannot remember the name of his book right now. I'll have to Google it. But in terms of power projection, what you're looking at is people who are in Bitcoin who want to have peaceful transactions. I'm not saying it's going to, cure the world, but at the same time, you're going to have people who are really good people that want the peace and consent communications protocol with tremendous amounts of influence and I guess purchasing power, so that those things can be carried out. And that's the thing that I think I'm probably most excited about, is you have a completely new group of people that have been, empowered by this money, by this communications protocol that's going to change the world.
Man, that's crazy. It's interesting to think about how like the newest technology, like something like Bitcoin, something that is in the digital age, can be paired with something that's been around forever, like plant medicine and psilocybin and that kind of thing. I don't think people would make that connection. I think it's a super interesting one to think about. And I love it.
There's a great piece. It's called the mycelium of money.
Okay.
And mycelium is just the base layer of fungi. And I think your question, I only answered like part of it, right? Is like, how do psilocybin and those things get us there as well? Like that's this understanding that we are an ancient species, that we've been around for quite some time, and that psychedelics were a rich part of our history prior to the church coming in and saying, let's absolutely ban these kind of things. Actually, let's put together inquisitions and hunt these people down who are doing these and rout them out and call them witches and make it illegal around the planet, change the names of these things, make them Schedule 1. All of this influence, right, has been pushed so that you can't have these experiences by those people. So, you can't stop mycelium. It's very much just like Bitcoin, right? It takes the foundational elements of Earth and it converts them into nutrients. And then, these compounds get together and they start to form the base layer of mycelium. And when you start to see, this happen, you're starting to watch this new this new network. And that's the thing, is mycelium, just like Bitcoin, is a distributed network, right? Like it's one of those things that takes what we have and it starts to produce something that is absolutely necessary for life on Earth. And that's, to not get real technical, that's the hyphal growth period in mycelium, or the base layer of fungi. So as this base layer comes together and starts to form networks, what they're doing is taking nutrients from one area to another. You've got literally a network that is sitting in the ground, sitting in logs, sitting in rocks, all around Earth, that is saying, hey, look, we need nutrients over here to this plant, or we need to maybe pull nutrients from this dying plant life or animal life and push it into here. So what you have is really amazing communication, and you've got pure signal. There's no middleman in between any of this, right? It's like, hey, we are nodes and we're operating, and now we are pushing signal to where we know we need these resources pushed, and that's Bitcoin. It's amazing how similar they are at a base level.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that. I like that. I found an article just now. Is this what? Hang on, sorry, I'm going to try to share it. Bitcoin is the mycelium of money.
Yeah.
An article by Brandon Quittem.
Yep. Yeah, I actually work with Brandon. So yeah, great guy. And there's some really amazing similarities in this space.
Interesting. I'd literally never heard that before. So that's, man, okay. Well, that gives our audience a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. I have been a Texas A&M Aggie football fan for my entire life. We haven't won a championship since 1939. My heart dies every single Saturday during football season. Can Brave help me get over my trauma in this regard?
Yeah, you're going to find something way more important. Yeah, man. And, what's funny is we're, being a Georgia Bulldog. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, in 2019, this whole thing started to kind of come to me. And, since then, the dog's been pretty good. So I don't know. Yeah, no, it definitely will give you some perspective in life too, right? Is like, don't get me wrong. Like, I took a break from sports for a long, long time. And now I've actually kind of started coming back around to it. where I enjoy it, but I'm not that fan that's, going to be mood dependent on how well my team does, right? Like Georgia played like shit on Saturday this week, and they've got some quarterback issues. But at the end of the day, I mean, really, is it something that is going to affect, how I feel and how I function and, determine any, like, no, there's a lot more important things out there that I'm really, I guess, not only passionate about, but, I guess prioritized, right? It's like you sit there and you go, oh, you know what? Here are my priorities. Like my priorities are, am I in good health? Is my family doing okay? Do I have, a warm bed and a roof and food and, like just, and it's automatic, right? It's like you start to see that. And the more present you are, right? If you're really present, you can sit there and watch your Aggies just, blow ass through an entire game, and you can laugh and you can have a good time because maybe you're looking around, you got your dog, you got your wife, you got your husband, whoever, and you guys can sit there and laugh at how ridiculous some of the intensity is around, these things. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's good to know. When I get to the point where I need to move past A&M, I'll give you a call.
Hey, season's upon us, my man. It's cooler in the mornings. We're not quite in the leaf changing phase up here in the North Georgia mountains, but we're getting close.
It's beautiful. I missed the entire summer too. It was great. I was up in the mountains in Montana. It was 65, 70 degrees all summer. It was delightful. So
yeah.
All right. How can people find you? How can people find Brave? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So right now everything's up on radicalpod.com. There are 3 different tabs out there, and one is for the actual show that I haven't done in quite some time. The other one is for Brave, and I'm trying to even remember. The other one is the Bitcoin Maximal. So yeah, you guys can still contact me. That's something I stood up earlier in the year just to do some outreach and start to teach people about any of this kind of stuff. And if anybody's interested, my wife is now working for Connor Boyack and the guys over at the Tuttle Twins.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, she is doing the Atlanta piece of the youth entrepreneurs. And so, and I may not have that exactly right in terms of nomenclature, but you guys get the idea. So I think what we're going to be doing, along with, me as an official representative of Swan, is my kids have careers. I guess they're little businesses that they've stood up.
Mm-hmm.
And, to go out there and stand, and have a tent or a booth with them that explains Bitcoin, that explains, some of the products that are out there, that explains people how to convert their businesses over to Bitcoin, or at least accept Bitcoin, and understand how to transaction even back and forth the cash and the tax implication. Like, we're going to do all that. And we're going to get all these people on board at a very local level to where, like I said earlier, these distributed nodes, we're going to start to move out and reproduce a lot like mycelium. So if you want to come out to one of those over the coming year, I think she's going to have about 8 different events around the Atlanta area with youth entrepreneurs. So if you're interested, you can come out to one of those. You can hit us up on the website. And yeah, you can find, I guess you can text me or find me through whatever social media. Twitter's pretty good. And I can set you up with an account too. And if you got questions, teach you about cold storage, about, keeping your little phrases on something that's not going to be destroyed, and exiting the terrible fiat system for something much more glorious and amazing.
Well, that is fantastic. Shane, thank you for joining today. Really appreciate it. You represent the Bald Brotherhood well, man.
My pleasure, brother. I am really, it's so good to see you. I look forward to meeting up in person, grabbing a beer, some mushrooms or whatever, and we'll have a good time.
Looking forward to it. Y'all, thank y'all very much for tuning in. You can tune in on Thursday nights to Liberty Libations. I apologize for the barking in the background right now. It's an idiot dog we're watching. Lincoln is a dummy.
He didn't get the memo.
That was me yelling at Lincoln just then. All right. That'll be it for today. Make sure to tune in next week for some more Free Georgia podcast. Appreciate everything y'all do. Go to lpgeorgia.com to learn more about the Libertarian Party. We'll see you next week. Peace.